yesterday, if you remember, we almost finished the Dvar Malchut of the Rebbe. We almost finished it. And the Rebbe began by saying that in 1992, we had a taste of what Moshiach is going to do, and namely to bring world peace, because all the leaders of the world all met together, and they decided that there was going to be no more war, and there was no going to be any more this, and it lasted for a little while. It lasted, but nevertheless, we got a taste of it. And the Rebbe explained how everything in the world pointed to this, and how the previous Rebbe was and is the Moshiach to the Jewish people, and the importance of the month of Shvat, and the importance of the number 11, etc. Okay. So let's go to the end. We got right up to the end over here. We go see. Let's do these last. Oh, Ulahosif, says the Rebbe. Yeah. So said the Rebbe, especially now we're going into the month of Adar. That the month of Adar, this Shabbat is the last Shabbat of this month of Shvat, and so we bless the next month of Adar. In Chabad, we before praying, we say the whole book of Psalms. It takes, I don't know, 2 hours. Some people used to take me 4 or 5 hours. Anyway, we say the book of Psalms, 150 Psalms. Say as much as you can. But we're blessing the month of Adar, and a month of Adar, it says, is a lucky month for the Jewish people. This is the month that was transformed misery into joy, namely the joy of the month of Purim and the redemption of Purim. And mismach geula legeula, and we when there's some years when there's what's called a big year, and there's 2 months of Adar in the Jewish calendar. In order that should be to synchronize between the moon and the sun, so you have to every 3 years, 4 years, you have to make an extra month. And that's the month of Adar. So month of Adar is when, excuse me, Purim, of course, in the month of Adar. So there arises the question, well, you can only make Purim once a year. You can't make 2 Purims. The holiday of Purim is only once a year, on the 14th day of Adar. So when do we make it? Do we make Purim on the first Purim, on the first Adar, or on the second Adar? Now, Adar is the month that comes right before Nisan. Adar is the last month of the year, the Jewish month of the Jewish months of the year, and Nisan is the first month of the next year. First month of the next year. So Adar comes right before it. So now the question is, which Adar do we make Purim in? So logically, you'd say, well, you make it in the first Adar, because the second Adar was just added on. The first Adar, that's the 12th month of the year. And the added on month of the year is the 13th month. There's no 13th month. It's just an added on month. So let's make Purim in the first month, right? So the Gemara, the Talmud says, no. We're going to make Purim in the second month, second Adar. Why? Because we want to mismach geula legeula. We want to make the miracle, the redemption of Purim, next to the redemption of Passover. So now we make Purim in the first Adar, and then we'll have to wait another full month. And then after that comes the month of Nisan. No. So it ends up that the first month of Adar, that's the additional one. And the second one, that's the one we make Purim. So it says, Mismach Geula Legula. We want to make, excuse me, Purim right next to Passover. Like the days of going out of Egypt, I will show you miracles. So the miracles of Adar are reminiscent of the miracles of Passover. Mismach gam b'shinoi aseder. Also, to make an order will be different. That the first true redemption will come before the Geula of Purim. What does that mean? The Rebbe is saying this year we shouldn't have to wait until Passover for the future redemption. So this year we'll have 3 redemptions. What's going to be? Today will be the Geula of all the Jewish people. Then all of the Jewish people will be in the land of Israel together. That's the first redemption. Then there'll be Purim, and then there'll be Passover. However, it is the redemption, the Jewish people can wake up like a person wakes up. How does a person wake up? He's asleep and he's dreaming in his dreams that he's floating in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on on a throne which is made from diamonds and who knows what, and he's on wings, and all of a sudden he wakes up. Oh, I gotta go to work. I'm late. What happened 1 second ago? He was the king of the universe, or he was being eaten by a crocodile or something, and suddenly wakes up and he realizes the whole thing was just a dream. Says, well, that's what's going to be in the future redemption. Right now, what we think is really real, what we put our emphasis on, what we think about is important. It's not really important. What's really important? God, which we don't see at all, we don't feel at all. That's like waking up. So the future redemption can happen in one instant. In one instant, suddenly everybody wakes up. There's no Christians and there's no Muslims and everybody just believes in the creator of the universe. And everybody, and consequently, there'll be a tremendous blessing in the world. The creator of the universe will bless everybody. Everybody will be happy. And nobody will be punished. Why should they be punished? I mean, maybe the people who are like actively hating the Jews for no reason. But why should they be punished? People, how were they supposed to believe in God? God wasn't revealed. How could you believe in him? So as everybody will be forgiven, everybody will believe in it. It'll just be a new world, like waking up. Like if in your dream you were, robbing a bank or something, you woke up, you're not going to be punished for robbing a bank. You didn't do it. You didn't know anything. You didn't know what it meant to be awake. And so therefore the future redemption can come before Purim and before. Well, the Hosef and Teheran, Sha'av Shemismach Geula LaGeula, even though the fact is that when we say we want Geula, namely the redemption now, by Moshiach should come even before Passover, even though this is talking about Adar Sheni, which is next to Nisan, like I explained to you, which is not the case. The first Adar, that's what we're announcing now. This year is not a double Adar. This year is not a double Adar, right? It's not a double Adar. Yishlom, we can say, nevertheless, we can say the Geula, the future redemption, will come now in the month of Shvat. It'll come now in the month of Shvat, and then afterwards will be Adar, that'll be Purim, and then after that it'll be Passover. The Lashon of Mishnah, in the language of the Mishnah, Ein bein Adar Rishon Adar Sheni elo kriyat Megillah u'matanot le'avyonim. When there's 2 months of Adar, you only read the Megillah when there's Purim, namely in the second Adar. And you give gifts to the poor people. That's also. There's we do have what's called Purim Katan, that they do certain things. Okay. Mashma, it's implied, Shebashar and Yanim, that everything else, in our case, like is relevant to the redemption. And they're equal. The Yeterim Izu, and even more, Shekev, and that since that it's called Adar Rishon, it's called the first Adar. Let me just check this out. I'm almost 1 second. Give me 1 instant. I just want to look at my calendar. I'm sure that there's no 2 others this year. 1 second. Shvat, Adar. Right?
Only 1 Adar this year.
There's only 1 Adar this year. Yeah. I know. I just don't want to add.
Next year's 2.
Okay. Well, take that when it comes. But nevertheless, this year there will be not just 2 redemptions, not just Purim and Pesach, but there'll be Moshiach, and then Purim, and then Pesach. That's what it means. So since that Adar Rishon, so it's logical to say that Adar Rishon means that it's the highest, even though that in fact it's not the highest because Purim comes in the second. But we can say that it's called Adar Rishon, that it's the highest. And it seems that in the year when the Rebbe was speaking, it must have been that it was 2 Adars. Kamudgas, like it's in the like in the regarding the 7th day of Adar, Zion Adar, that Zion Adar was the day, the Rebbe is going to talk about this next week, that Haman threw lots. Now, Zion Adar, 7th day of Adar, was the day that Moses died. And so Haman was very happy that when he threw the lots to destroy the Jewish people, God forbid, as it fell out in the month of Adar, he was very happy because that was the month that Moses died. And he didn't know that Moses was also born on that same day. He died on the same date. So it says when there came Pur, he threw lots, some sort of lots or dice or something on the month of Adar. He was happy because that was the month that Moses died. But for some reason, he must have not been in class that day. He didn't know that Moses was born on the 7th day of Adar. That's the main thing of Adar. And they say that it was the first Adar. Alder says similar. We find also many things that Adar regular. This is talking about the first Adar. And that year must have been that the Rebbe, there was 2 Adars must have been that year. In any case, now we're going into the month of Adar. And the month of Adar was the month that Moses was born. And it was the month of the miracle of Purim and the merit of Moses being born. On this month, this coming Shabbat, we make a blessing and we announce, according to the Torah, and then the custom of the Jewish people is Torah, that the Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon is going to be on Yom Shlishi. Like I said, this year we don't have 2 Adars. But Adar is going to be, yes, on Yom Shlishi, right? Adar this year is Monday night. Huh? When Moshiach comes, let me check this out again. I don't want to make mistakes. Again, I should have looked before, but I didn't. Here we go. Ready? Where is it going to be? Yes. The first day of Adar is going to be on Monday night, Tuesday. And there's 2 days of Adar, right? 2 days of Adar. Tuesday and Wednesday. Good. Tuesday and Wednesday. So therefore, when Mashiach comes immediately, before Rosh Chodesh is going to be next week on Tuesday, Monday night. Mashiach should come before that. Sha'az yachzuru lekodesh hachodesh, and then we'll sanctify the moons according to seeing the Mashiach will bring the Sanhedrin, will reinstate the Sanhedrin in the Holy Temple. Then it could be that the place of the Sanhedrin, it will be, will say that there's only 1 Adar. And there won't have to be 2. Because it will sanctify the moons, the months according to the moon. Yes, it'll be right next to Nisan. We won't have these problems of 2 Adars and which Adar to decide, and etc. But this year we don't have that problem either. Only because there's only 1 Adar this year. May it be God's will. We have to remember something. The Jewish people, they started out with this idea of redemption, right? It began in Egypt. The Jewish people began in slavery. They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't, because some of them were not religious or some of them were, who knows what. The Jewish people started out as slaves. They were born as slaves. There was 210 years that they were slaves, right? So it started out with it. And then God took them out miraculously. And that was the history of Judaism. That always the Jewish people got themselves into trouble, or God put them into trouble, whatever, and then they got out. But Judaism was born by getting out of troubles. That's why the Jewish people were born in trouble and they got out of troubles. That when the Jewish people, they left Egypt. So this should be a normal part of our history. And not only our history, our future, our identity. Oh, the identity of the Jewish people is leaving Egypt. Not getting used to where we are and hoping for something infinitely, incomparably better. That's the essence of Jewish people. And I just read a letter by the Rebbe, interesting letter. It says when the Jewish people got out of Egypt, it started a whole new thing in the world of totally depending on God for money. Never existed such a thing in the world. The Jewish people were in Egypt. In Egypt, they were secure. God told them, leave Egypt. Don't take any food. You're going into the desert. Now, how long can you live in the desert without any food, without any water? How long? A day, maybe 2 days. That's it. 3 days. No food. The Jewish people left Egypt. They didn't take any food. They didn't take any water. They had absolutely no chance of surviving. There were 3 million Jews. They all left. They had no desert training, or they what is it? What they call it? the skills of living in nature. There were people who had been slaves their whole life. They depended on the Egyptians for their food. They hadn't seen a miracle 210 years, 400. It's in the letter of the Rebbe. 210 years, they never saw one miracle. The Jewish people, 4 generations of normal slaves. That's what they were. And all of a sudden, God says, go out into the desert. It's going to be miracles. You're going to have food. You're going to have water. You're going to have this. How are you going to have? Good, God showed them 10 miracles, but going out into the desert is a different story. And they all went out, and God provided for them. And they did sins. They went against, and God kept providing for them. So that's the Jewish people. So the Rebbe is trying to convince us that it's going to happen any second. It has to happen any second. It's the nature of the Jewish people that miracles happen to them en masse, in big time, to all the Jews at once. Yehi Ratzon, maybe that's what happened on Purim. Yehi Ratzon, maybe be God's will, and that's the main thing, that the future redemption by means of Moshiach will come actually immediately now. And certainly we don't have to wait until the month of Nisan for it to happen. And also we don't have to wait till the month of Adar, which is right next to Nisan. And we don't have to wait for Adar, they're coming, because when the Rebbe was speaking, there were 2 Adars. Why? Because the Mashiach is going to come right now. He's going to come on this Shabbat, Mavorchim Adar, the Rebbe was speaking. And this, that. B'siyumo, in the end of the month of Shvat, on the 27th day of Shvat, that's when the Rebbe was speaking. Ubafran, and especially on Shabbat after the midday, that's when the Rebbe was speaking. There's a man Mincha and the Suda Shlishit that is attached to the future redemption and the 3rd temple, and the third redemption, etc. So it should be to us. Actually, immediately, in Kol HaPirushim, with all of the explanations what it means, miyad. One of the meanings was miyad, he said, is Moshe, Mem, Yud Daled, Moshe, Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, and David. Well, David is the Mashiach. The Rebbe said in another place that miyad means Mashiach Menachem Shemo, which is the name of the Rebbe, and then Yosef Yitzchak, the previous Rebbe, and Dovber, which is the Rebbe before him. Kol HaPirushim, all the words, and also the words that should come mamash really now. And first of all, some people say mamash is Menachem Mendel Schneerson. I mean, we don't need all these letters and everything. That the fact that the Rebbe is Mashiach is obvious. It's obvious. It just says in the Rambam, we're supposed to wait for Mashiach. And here's a person that has all the criteria. It's just, simply obvious. I don't really understand really what the question is. Therefore, the Chol Rosh immediately should be really mamish should come Mashiach and change the whole world like that.